Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to speak about chapter 7. Okay, it's about system life cycle. System life cycle. The system analyst will review an existing system which is currently not meeting expectations. The steps showing below will be followed to develop a new system which is fit for the purpose. The system analyst will review, for example, we have organization, and in this organization there is a system, but some systems maybe they will make some failures, they will cause some errors, or maybe we cannot just receive an accurate report or maybe an accurate result. So that means it doesn't meet the expectation. So sometimes if this system doesn't meet the expectation, so we have to analyze them, and this is the proper steps for analyzing system or like evaluate system. So how the analyst review system, they have to follow these steps to upgrade or to develop a new system to take a place of the old or the current system. Okay, these steps are analyze, design, development and testing, implementation, documentation, evaluation. Okay, the first of all is analyze. So collecting information about the present system and identifying problems. So now let's imagine that we are a company, we have current system, and this system is full of mistakes, problems, delays, and the user, they cannot work with it comfortably. So we have to analyze. This means we have to collect all the information and all the causes of the problems. This means we have to collect the information about the systems, and we have to identify where exactly the problems and when it's gonna happen. So a full details about this. So this is the analyze. Then we'll go to the other steps, which is designing a new system to correct the problem identified in the analyze. So whenever now we find out the problem, so now we have to design a new software or a new system to correct the problems which is already identified by the analyze step. So Halas, we finished designing the systems and we have this system. Let's go to other step is development and testing. So development and testing, developing and testing the new system, which is we designed already. The other step is to implementation. This means to replacing the old system with the new system. It has a new system that we already designed, and we solved all these problems early. So we have to it has to take the place of the old system. Documentation, creating technical and user documentation for the new system. Now we have the new system, we implemented it into our company. Now we need to introduce this system to the users. That means user documentation, and to the IT department. That means the technical documentation. And then we have to start evaluate the system. So evaluating whether the new system meet the requirement of the design requirement. If this system in this evaluation meet the standards and fix all these problems, that's fine. Okay, and if not, we have to go back to the design level to redesign a new systems to also solve the problem, and so on. So this is the life cycle of the system. Okay, so let's start with the analyze. The analyze, there is techniques into the analyze, like to analyze any like this is observation, to observe the system or to test or to check on the current system. For example, you have here Teams. If I ask you, please analyze Teams, you will tell me maybe it needs strong network EMS, or maybe it needs it's delaying calls. So the analyze techniques is observation, interview, questionnaire, collecting documents. So observation, the user of the current system is observed to find out how it works. Okay, the advantage of that, the analyst can obtain reliable information about the current system. Information will not be based as it's the analyst's point of view. Yes, because the observer, which is the analyst, they will go stay in the user in the same room or the same office to check on him while he's working with the system. So the advantages, okay, they will take like the real information right now, real information. This is reality, sorry. And it's sometimes information would not be the way that the observer or the analyst wants. This is not his point of or her point of view. So the disadvantages of this, some employees may feel uncomfortable being observed, or some employees may perform differently if they know they being observed. Yes, sometimes observation is not comfortable for employees. Sometimes they will feel maybe shy or maybe not, yeah, uncomfortable. This is the feeling. Or some employees, they will act differently, whether maybe they will freeze because there's observer in the house, or maybe they will be like active or professional, and in fact they're lazy, so they're not just pretend the normality of those. Okay, interview. People who use the system are interviewed to gauge their feedback. Okay, so the advantages, can ask open-ended questions to gauge to more feedback. Questions can be modified during the interview. Like a normal interviews, we don't just call the user of the system and we're going to ask him questions. Sometimes this question lead to other question, and so the questions can be modified. For example, okay, we're going to speak about this interface or this part of the system, and then we're going to speak further to take further information. The disadvantages, it can be a time-consuming process. The interviewee cannot remain anonymous with this method. Yes, sometimes yes. Yes, because sometimes it will be time-consuming because maybe the analyst will know already this and the user doesn't give you like a quality of information. The questionnaires are distributed to employee or customer to find out a range of opinions about the current system. Advantages, this questionnaires can reach a larger audience. Yes, questions can be answered quickly using tick books, cheaper methods of analyzing. The disadvantages, questionnaire may not be completed accurately, may not be all returned, cannot expand or clarify answers to questions. Yes, the questionnaire, like for me, this is a suitable, like way suitable um, technique to collect or to just gather all the information, because I can easily distribute any links of forms to do this questionnaire or survey, or maybe just like a printed out on a paper forms to just tick with the tick notes, or like questions I have to answer it by tick or circle. It has to be distributed to employee or customer. This mean is like sometimes customer satisfaction, or maybe customer feedbacks, or maybe even the employee feedback. Yes, it can reach everyone. This means we have large audience of this. So the sample that we're working is, if we just collect information for 100 sample, it will be out of 100%. And it's easy way to distribute, and also it will be easy by just clicking or by tick, and it will be cheap because it's going to be printed into a paper or just linked to send it to everyone. The disadvantage, questionnaire may not be completed accurately. Sometimes some people, they will tick 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 just to finish, and that's it. Or maybe sometimes they will receive the paper or receive the link without any response. Cannot expand or clarify answer to questions. Yes, sometimes they cannot answer the questions properly. The other technique, or the last technique of this, collecting documentation. So every single system, whenever we implement it into a company or an organization, we have to prepare its documentation, whether is user documentation or technical documentation. So the analysis the analysis way to observe or to check on this system is to collect its documentation. Existing documentation for the current system is analyzed to identify what data is inputted and outputted. The disadvantages, or sorry, the advantages, analysts can see how current the paper system operates, can obtain information critical to the system. The disadvantages is it can be also time consuming, too much work, too many work to read. Due to the amount of time required, this is a costly method. Yes, if we have like facing a serious problem of this current system and we don't have time to analyze this current system to build up a new system, so this is time consuming, because that means I have to read too many documentation to find out exactly the mechanism of how this current system works. Okay, the analyze it takes like sometimes data may be paper based. As I said earlier, the documentation sometimes it will be just printed out manuals or book for the current system. So data which is inputted, processed and outputted into the systems are identified. It has to be identified. Then the problem with the current system are identified. We finished. So the data, it has to be identified. The problems of this system also, it has to be identified. And the requirements of the user and the potential new system are identified. So what we need in the analysis is data to be identified, problems it has to be identified, and the requirement of the new system, the potential points, it has to be identified. Sometimes the data, it has to be paper based, not digital based. Yani sometimes if we have database in Access, so we go and just to prepare a report and then it will be ready for us. Advanced level is not even Access. There's another program such as SQL Server or SQL database. Also, this is just print that to just prepare kind of report and then to just give the analyst those report. It will be this digital database, whether Access, whether SQL or SQL Server, or even SAP or any kind of database applications. Okay, the problem has to be, as I said, identify how we could improve this, how to fix this problem. Since we answered this question, how to improve this, that means now we know already, or we knew already the requirement or the solution. We fix the system here. Whenever we solve the problem, this means we knew what is our new system. So that means the requirement or the potential points is identified. What is the new system meant to do? So what the new system meant to do, it leads us for the requirement and specifications. So the specification is general in every system or every new system is, once the system analysts have completed the analysis stage of the system life cycle, they should be fully aware of the limitation of the current system. They have to know exactly, they have to be fully aware of the limitation of the current system. The next step will be design a new system, normally computer-based, to resolve the problems identified by the users and the system analyst. Okay, the other step or the other point is the requirement specification will be created, which will outline the required improvements and expectation of the new system. So, as I said, whenever we finish from the analysis stage, this means we fully understand or we fully aware the limitation of the current system, and the new system, it has to be normally, of course, designed as computer-based and identified the problems and how to solve this. So the problems known already, exactly what's happened the time that the system analyst or the user identified those problems. So the new system has to be aware or fully identify those problems and fix it. The requirement specification, we have to solve those problems, and it's required improvement and expectation of for the new system. This is exactly what has to be in the steps of the new system meant. So whenever we finish the analysis stage and find out where are the problems and how to fix these problems, what is the limitation of the current system and what is the specification or the expectation the new system will do, then let's go to step of the design. The design is based on the information from the analysis stage, and the new system will be designed. The new system will hope to resolve the issues identified in the current system. Users should be able to interact with the system via a data capture form, so is it easier and quicker to input data. Yes, so as I said, based on the information earlier from the analysis stage, and we have to design the system. So we need to resolve these issues identified earlier in that stage, and we have to bring it to the users, okay, also sometimes to the customers on a friendly way. So that means the interface of the system, design system, has to be friendly. How to be friendly? They're going to clear here everything here on screen forms should. For example, if I have this input interface, input does mean a place to input the data in. For example, here this is a bookshop system, and they will ask about book ID, so we have to put it, book name, author ID, January, shop, current stock, sale, sold, price, and so on. And these are buttons for sometimes to add record, save record, or delete record. So for me, this is comfortable. I can see it, and the colors, the contrast between the colors are clear for me to see, and I can recognize where to type and where is fixed. So for example, these are fixed, but this is the place I can type, and here this is the place I can just drop list. I can pick or to put option here to click to select an option, or here just tick box or radio buttons. Okay, so on screen form should appropriate spacing for each field. Every single field, it has to be the spacing, appropriate spacing for each field. Screen filled, not too much white space. This means it has to be full, like occupied. We don't have to have empty spaces or white spaces. Why? To be comfortable to the eyes can see or can recognize exactly the system. Clearly identified input area for each field. For example, these are the field name, and these are the place I can just type or to input all this data. An easy to read font or font size is readable for me, and these are the font and the font size, font type and font size. Okay, a sensible font color, background color. Yes, it can match as I told you. Drop down list and tick box. Here, these are the drop down list. For example, to choose an option, here they give you option: adventure, crime, drama, fantasy, science, fiction. And here the tick box radio buttons to enter choices, just to click on it. Okay, and no overlapping of item. No overlapping. Everything is clear. No overlapping of items. Navigation aids. The way whenever we click, I have to go to other one. I have to just check from book to the other books and so on. Okay, so since we designed now the interface, let's go to the data itself. Now into the interface, they brought the name field and the name fields of the books, the book ID, book name, author ID, genre, shop, current stock, sale, sold, price, and picture. So every single field, there will be data type. We spoke about this earlier in Access. So for example, book ID has to be number or integer. Okay, book name has to be text. Author ID, text. Genre, text. Shop, text. Current stock, number or integer. And the sale, yes or no type, data type, which is boolean, yes or no, yes, boolean. And price, number or integer, I said. Picture is OLE, object. So before the data input form can be created, the database has to be created. The following needs to be considered: type of data which will captures and inputted, different table which may be required, and relationship which be could established, different fields including the key which would be required, data types that would be required for each field, such as text, integer or numeric, double, boolean, yes or no question, yes or no, or even true or false, OLE, object, which is image. Paper-based form must include any paper-based printed out just to tick or to circle and everything. It has to be clear heading and instructions. Use of the textbooks to collect information such as name, BLD, etc. Use of the textbooks to make choices easier, like gender, for example. Clear font and text styles. For the data and data types and the way that we create tables and we are creating the foreign key and everything, you can revise Access. And these are the data type that we used to use. Sometimes we introduce before to text, integer, double, and boolean before. Let's go next. Okay, after we designed the interface, we created the database. Now we need to check on these data that you already entered, the validation of the data, or data validation. Data validation checks whether the data entered data fulfills specific criteria to ensure the data is valid. Different validation techniques can be used on different fields depending on the types of the data required for each field. For example, we have many techniques of these to check the validation. The present check, to check if the data has been entered is present, like modern, currently, or not like an old data or so. Okay, range check, to check the data entered is in the correct range. Like for example, the year from 7 to 12. If we put 13, this is not in the range, and so. Length check, to check if the item of the text is too short or too long. Check if full number has been entered. So either the full number or like there's missing number. Type check, to check if the type of the data entered is correct. No letters in a numeric field, for example. We select the data type to be numeric, so we is not allowed to type letters. It will be invalid information. Okay, format check, to check if the data has been entered in the correct format. For example, date, we have to put DD, MM, Y. So DD for the day, and it has to be 2 digits, and months, M, two numbers. For example, March, it has to be 03, and December, of course, 12, and the year, it has to be 4 digits, and so. So data verification, okay, this is all data validation. We need to know the data validation. These are valid. What is the data verification? The data verification is a method of double checking the data to see if it is correct. This is the verification. Proofreading, like if I have like any paragraph, we need to check on the spelling, grammar, the accuracy. So once data has been entered, it will be checked to see if it is correct. For example, check the name is spelled correctly or not. Double entry. Sometimes some data will be required to re-enter. Sometimes if I enter the same information, it will be cancelled or an error, but some information, it has to be double, which is this is the double entry. The double entry, the same data is required to be entered twice. For example, type new password twice. For example, if I'm going to change my email password, so I have to put the current password and a password, and then to put the new password and to confirm the new password, and then click on update. Okay. The other step is, last we collecting the information, we analyze, we design the interface, we design the database, and we check onto the data is correct, the validation of the data, and we verify all the information in there, or all data in there. Now let's go to the development and testing. The development and testing, we have to create the file structure. We finish from the structure, then we have to validate the information via validation techniques, and then we have to check into the user interface. Okay, to create the file structure, it has to be the field name to store the specific data, set the specific data types, and so we finish from here. Now we have to validate our data. Validation rules will ensure the correct data is entered into the field. Like for example, I have this validation rules in a number. These numbers, it has to be larger than 0 and less than, and more than 0 or less than 26, for example. Okay, and the interface will allow the user to interact with the system and input data. The interface, it should be friendly, user friendly. Why user friendly? Because the user is the only person who can enter data, like data entry person or data entry user. They have to just fill the space, so everything has to be clear. So each step in this development stage will be checked to ensure there are no errors in the system. Validation rules will be checked to see if only the correct values can be entered into the relevant fields. User interface check to see if they are user friendly, and to see if the different components work navigation buttons. For example, if I have this interface, so by click on save, it will open for me a new one, which is empty one, or maybe to close this window and open another one. So we have to just check on all the navigation buttons. Okay, whenever we finish from this, also now we finish from the development. Now this is the testing. Now we need to test the system. The system is not about just test and that's it. The test, I have to click to test, or like to test, and then modify if any errors found. Okay, that's mean models combined to make full program. So this testing for full program, but whenever we click or whenever we start to do the test, so every single model in the system, it has to be tested. Why? Sometimes you in the full program you cannot find any errors or any mistakes, but in one model you will find, on one module you will find a problem, so you have to solve. You have to test every single model of the full program. So testing takes place to ensure all components of the system are working correctly before the system is implemented. Software systems are developed in modular form, which means each part of the system is developed separately by the programmer. This allows each model of the system to be tested separately. Once it has been developed, if error are found in the models or for programs, then modification will be made to the system. Okay, modification which could be made sometimes data or file structures, validation rules, input method or output formats. And a typical test plan would include, whenever, sometimes this is an example of how to do tests. So what is being tested, the test data that will be used, the expected outcome of the test. So these are categories or the or principle how we can test, or like what exactly we don't whenever we plan to do any test, what are exactly we're looking for, what is being tested, this module for program, that module XYZ, or data test data that will be used. Okay, which data we need to just verify or validate these data, expected outcome of this test. We finished the test, what is the outcome of this test? Okay, below are example of 3 different types of test data that could be entered into the system. Once the system has been fully tested, then live data actual. What's mean by live data? Live data, actual data that would be entered. What is let's go live in the system live? Go live, this is the implementation. Like this means halas, we have to interact with the real data, we have to interact with the system as it's real. So live data, this means the actual data will be entered into the system. Okay, results are compared to those produced from the current system. These results are compared to those. So whenever we finish result, we found result from the new system, so we have to compare it with the current system to test. Okay, for example, they gave you here a range. Okay, this range starts from 0 to 100%. Okay, so they said that the normal data is data within a given range. It has to be from 10% to 90. These are the green ones. This is the normal data. Okay, abnormal data is the data outside the range or the limits. For example, less than 0 or more than 100. Less than 0 or more than 100. That mean the boundaries. They exceed the boundaries. So the extreme data on the boundaries of the range or at the limits of the acceptability. For example, from 0 to 5% or from 95 to 100%. Here, these are the extreme. Okay, so these are the testing data. Okay, so we finished now from the test. We compared from the current system and the now we with the implemented system. Now we found out the new system is amazing after we develop it and test it and everything, and now we are ready to go live. Implementation, that means system, it has to go live. Go live, this means the organization needs to get rid of the old system and work with the new system. The ways of like release the old system and have the new, we have many techniques or many types of how to do this. The first one is direct changeover. Direct changeover is just the new system, it has to be replaced the old system. The existing system is stopped, okay, and replaced by the new system immediately. The data that was inputted into existing system is now inputted into the new system. Advantages: the whole system would have been fully tested before it's implemented, so less chance of error. Costs are reduced as only one system is being used. The tasks are not duplicated. Instead of like doing two systems, just only one system. So this means costs are reduced. And for the disadvantages, if the new system fails, then all system is not available to fall back to. There may not be enough time to provide training for the employees. Yes, if any failures or mistakes happen in the new system, we cannot have any backup because the old system is not here. And also sometimes we don't have time to train the employees, so they cannot just fully aware of all the techniques of the new system. The parallel running, which is like they have to go together, but the old one has to be withdrawn, and they are working together, but the old one will be just withdrawn out. So the introduction of the parallel running is the existing and new system work together for a period of time until the new system fully takes over. Data is inputted into both systems whilst they are running at the same time. What the advantages of this? If the new system does not meet the requirements, then all system is still available. Employees can be trained gradually how to use the new system. Meanwhile, the old system is working. Disadvantages. Tasks will be duplicated as data is inputted into both systems. This will require more employees, which will result in more costs or paying salaries for the employers. Okay, because two systems are running. Now the third type or the third way to implement is phased implementation. Phased implementation, the new system is gradually introduced when parts of the new system are working at the satisfactory level, then more elements of this system are phased in. Eventually, the old system will phase out over a period of time. This means they will withdraw one by one, phase by phase, and the new system will lead. And the advantages, you only introduce a new part of system if the current phase is working correctly. If a part of the new system does not meet the requirements, then you can always go back to point of system which was working. Disadvantages: time consuming, as every part of the system which is implemented needs to be evaluated. The number of training sessions would be required for employees when each step of the new system is introduced. Okay, the pilot running. The pilot running is the new system is uh, piloted or trialed in one part or one department, for example, of an organization. If the pilot is successful, then it will be implemented across all departments. For example, like I'm giving examples right now, if I have organization and I have the registration department, so the system will run inside the registration department. If succeed, so I will be forced into all the departments. If failure, so this department will take help or will ask help from the other department. For example, he said here, if a new system is introduced in a bookstore, which is part of chain, then eventually, if the system is successful, it will be introduced to all of the books store in the chain. Okay, advantages: if a new system does not meet the requirement, then only one department is affected. Training can take place in one department at a time. Then employees could be used in other departments to help with training. Disadvantages: it could take a while for the whole system to be implemented across of all these departments. If the systems fails in one department, then modifications and further training could be required, resulting in delays. Okay, after we finish implementation and we select the method we are implementing this system into the organization, now we have to find or to have we have to do the documentation part. The documentation part, there are two types of documentation that should be produced when creating a new system: user documentation or technical documentation. User documentation or the user manual, you can find in every single system that you are buying, or every single even machine. You will find the book with the structures and some pictures or some steps 1, 2, 3, and its name is manual or user documentation. The user documentation is intended to help the users of the system. User documentation usually includes a list of minimum hardware and software required to use the system, how to install the system, how to start or stop the system, how to use features of the system, a screenshot showing the system in typical in a typical use, example input and outputs, explanation of any error message that might be showing, a troubleshooting guide. This is for users. For technical documentation or a technical guide, the maintainers are usually technical people. Usually they are IT, for example, or ICT department, who needs to know exactly how the system works. The technical documentation usually includes details of the hardware and the software required for the system, details of the structures, data type, field name, etc., details of expected input, detail of validation checks, and details of how data is processed, diagrams showing how data moves through the system, flowchart describing how the system works. Now, whenever we finish the handbooks, or the documentation or the manual or even the guides, and we send it to their department, whether the IT or ICT department, and the manual for the users. So now we have to evaluate the system. The final stage of the system life cycle is to evaluate the new system which has been implemented in full. The purpose of the evaluation is refer back to the requirement specification to see whether the new system has resolved this issue of the previous system and met the requirement stated in the design or not. If yes, we will continue with the system. If no, we have to go back to the design to fix out all the what's happening, the problems that not fixed, or the exactly the specification or the requirement is not fixed. Okay, first in the evaluation we have to compare the solution, which is the original task requirement, to identify any limitation and necessary improvement to the system. Number 3, evaluate the user's response to the result of testing the information. After the evaluation is complete, if there are any problems or any limitations with the system from a technical or user point of view, then the system analyst will refer back to the design stage of the system's life cycle. Based on the feedback, necessary adjustment could be made to improve the overall efficiency and usability of the new system. This is the end of the chapter, so thank you very much for your time. Thank you.